Time for your favorite part of the day. Let's run through some multiple choice questions together. Which of the following is most likely to accompany a reduction in aggregate demand? First, what's aggregate demand? Let's recap that. Aggregate demand is the overall demand in an economy. So, for example, during 2008, we have a financial crisis. Aggregate demand is probably pretty low because demand for overall, like aggregate means overall. So overall demand for houses, for going out to restaurants, for movie tickets, for cars. People don't have as much money. There's a financial crisis going on. Aggregate demand will be much lower. So generally, lower aggregate demand will be the cause of recessions. Whereas higher aggregate demand, you've got an economic boom, you've got lots of money in the economy, lots of wealth. That is going to increase aggregate demand because people have money to spend, it's burning a hole in their pockets, and they want to buy things which will boost the economy. All right, so which of the following is most likely to accompany a reduction in aggregate demand? Again, probably decreased economic activity. So which of these indicates decreased economic activity? A decrease in employment. Okay, that sounds pretty spot on. Let's keep reading. What about a decrease in the unemployment rate? Well, a decrease in the unemployment rate is I'm going to say positive and negative factors. So this is a positive factor, whereas A is a negative factor. An increase in real GDP. Well, you could draw the supply and demand curves to actually prove this, but think about this. An increase in real GDP, this is a positive factor for an economy. So I am going to cross that off as well. And an increase in the price level, I'm going to cross that off as well. And I'll draw it for you. So this is going to be our aggregate demand curve. So right here, this is AD, aggregate demand. This will be an explanation for C and D, why those are incorrect. And this is the general price level. And this is general GDP. Now, a reduction in aggregate demand is a shift left on the curve. And if the shift is moving left, overall price levels are going down. And overall, GDP is going down. So, as such, it would be a decrease in price level and a decrease in real GDP, leaving just our letter A decrease in employment. Great. Wonderful there. And you know what? I'm going to leave our graph up because I believe the next question has to do with it as well. And yes, it does. Although, it's in the way. All good, all good. A right shift or an increase in aggregate demand would result in what? Okay, now we're shifting right. Going right. All right, you know what? Just for you, dear listener, I will redraw the graph. Awesome. So here is aggregate demand. Aggregate demand. So while I'm drawing this out, if you want to read some answers, think about it, feel free. And I'm just going to put a G there. Okay. Now this is a rightward shift. As such, let's say we shift it to over here. Let's extend this graph even further. So we just went from, let's say, right here to right here. Price level, let's say this is, 5, and now that's 6. Just kind of flinging numbers out there. Let's say this is 5 and this is 6. I'm just making up arbitrary numbers, but it's a good visual. Right here, what went up? Well, GDP went up and price went up with a rightward shift, also known as an increase in aggregate demand. As such, increase in both price level and real GDP. Not any of these other ones, because these other ones have a decrease in price level. Nope. Decrease in both. Nope. And decrease in real GDP. Nope. So leaving just letter C. Boom. There we go. Wonderful. Let's keep moving on. Lagging and leading indicators. Before we even read any further, I see this, and remember that leading indicators are metrics that you can look at in the economy, and they will hint at possibly recessions on the way, or possibly, positive or negative economic events. Whereas lagging indicators are going to be things that you can look at retrospectively, which they don't help you prevent anything, right? Like, you can look at these and they'll tell you a story. Like, they're important, though, to understand the overall picture and determine where you are in the business cycle. But so leading indicators are those that will actually really help you. Lagging indicators, they're important. So for example, a leading indicator might be if we start to see the unemployment rate getting worse, that is probably an indicator that our economy's getting a little worse. Maybe we see inflation rising. So lagging indicators do not help in preventing a recession, however, follow economic activity and can be assessed for future usage. So again, we can use these, they're helpful, but they do not prevent recessions, whereas leading indicators do. So which of these is not a lagging indicator? Great question. I'm going to start here. So inventories to sales ratio, why is that important? Well, inventories to sales ratios for companies are important because, well, if you have high inventory compared to low sales, that's not good. You want low inventories to high sales because that's positive turnover. So this is going to actually be a lagging indicator. You can look at this after the fact. Once the damage has been done and the economy is not doing as well, you're going to have high inventory and low sales. Prime rate charged by banks. The prime rate is the underlying rate that these banks are going to charge to their customers or to anyone really. These are the basis rates for different types of loans and lines of credit. And these rates will adjust based on factors. So these as well are going to be lagging indicators because these are adjusted after some economic event happens. Consumer debt to income ratio, this one as well. All of these ratios are lagging indicators that will get adjusted as, again, say 2008 financial crisis happens, consumer debt will go up, income might go down. That would be affected by such a situation. Now, our money supplies. The M2 money supply is a leading indicator, whereas these others are lagging indicators. In our economics section, the money supply refers to all the cash and currency in circulation within a country. A country's money supply, it has significant effect on the country's macroeconomic profile, particularly relating to interest rates, inflation, the business cycle, all of that. More specifically, the M1 money supply is also called the narrow money supply, and that's going to include all coins and notes that are in circulation or other monetary equivalents that can be converted easily to cash. M2 includes the M1 as well as short-term time deposits in banks and certain money market funds. So as you get M0, M1, M2, M3, as you grow, it gets more broad and includes more categories of money supply. Think of it like your cash and cash equivalents in financial accounting. You're adding more and more equivalents as you get higher in these numbers. Now, the most it does is M0 to 3, and M3 isn't really even used as much anymore, just to give you kind of a background there. But yeah, great question there. Just to recap, this is a leading indicator. These others are lagging. Last question here. Which of the following definitions best describes a business cycle? Well, I just want to recap the business cycle. We start at a point, and we're having an expansion. We're expanding. We have a peak, and then we start to decline, right? Contractionary phase until we're at a trough, and we go up, expansion, peak. This is generally how it goes, right? And the very bottom could be a recession. It could also just be, just not as high of a growth period, and it just goes up and down and up and down. But generally, it will continually, over the long term, go up. This is the business cycle. So which of these best describes that business cycle? Is it activity where real GDP declines, inflation moderates, and unemployment increases? No, this is more so going to be at the bottom. Or it's on the decline or at the bottom. So the overall cycle is all of this. It's not just one part. That's why letter A is wrong. Letter A is referring to just on the decline or at the bottom. Activity marked by a relatively high level of, so this is the opposite. Inflation, full employment, real GDP, that's on the upward or at the top. Again, that's marking part of the cycle, but not the full cycle. Activity where the decline in the economy's real gross domestic product persists for at least half a year. Nope, this is going to hint at more recession type. And again, that's just one part of it. Whereas letter D, let's go over all of that. Whereas letter D, states activity that alternates periods of growth and decline in economies' GDP. Alternates growth and decline. That's much more like it, right? Alternates goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Generally, over the long run, up, yes. But alternates, not everything's perfect. Not everything's always horrible, right? And that's why the answer is letter D. Business cycle is defined as activity that alternates periods of growth and decline in an economy's GDP. That is it for you today. Thank you all for joining. Some great questions on supply and demand. I'll see you in the next one. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.